Hi, this is Shilpa here. Welcome to my blog for November. Now, what I'm going to try and help you understand from this case is at what point do you consider a, a symptom that has reached a point where you can now convert it into a rubric? And what are those in terms of the entire essence and core essence of a person? Because this is basically a case taken at stage 3. So we're looking at places where the mind and the body are connecting at some point, and how are these then expressed in terms of symptoms, which then can be converted into rubrics. Okay, so let's talk about this case. Now, I saw this person in 1998. It was the first or the second year of my practice. Basically, my practice was I was working as a homeopathic GP in India, so I wasn't actually spending a lot of time. Most of my cases would be about 45 minutes in that first consult, and then half an hour to 20 minutes of follow-ups. So this was a person who came with severe headaches, since which had developed into these really severe migraine type headaches since a few years, and he's had taken a lot of homeopathics, and basically he's had them for now 12 years. And he mentioned he's taken so many medicines, and most of those were headache medicines, taken on the basis of therapeutics, and they've never really done much for his headaches. So he mentioned it was like a spotty pain on the right or the left temple, and then it turns into this really throbbing, bursting sort of headache with the temporal arteries really pounding. And it's aggravated by shaking his head or his looking down, and it's better by sleeping, after passing stools, by resting. And he also talks about, eating makes it feel better. He has a ravenous appetite and craving for lots of different things. So he really loves his food in that aspect. And he says, it's also better during his morning walks. And, when he's talking with someone or he's in company, he's listening to music. So there were lots of things which came up when what makes his headaches better, which was for me quite interesting, because normally a person with migraines really doesn't want to have people around him, or doesn't wants to be in complete dark and doesn't want to speak, whereas here it was like a very interesting situation. And he says he normally wakes up with a headache if he sleeps until late. So it wasn't just the migraine headaches. There were quite a few different types of, cluster, tension headaches. So basically that was what his major complaint was. Now, at this point, if I was taking that case and I was looking at rubrics, normally the first instinct is, wow, we have so many modalities here, It's better by sleep, it's aggravated waking, it's better by walking, talking, exercising, socializing, company, music. We can take the pounding headaches. We can also take the location where he was quite specific. It was on the temples. So you could actually make it into a totality where you're looking at these different aspects of the case, and which is fine, which could actually work at, when you were looking at stage 1 and 2. However, this person was someone who was very, he could talk, and I could ask him a few questions, and I would see where exactly where are these things actually connecting at some deeper level as well. So I made that point to do that, and then you get some important points which might then make us, convert into a rubric, which is much more at a deeper level. So let's look at that. So I asked him to talk about what has been the most, what is that thing which, helps you the most. And he says, whenever I have this headache, I just go walking. And he says, I can walk up to 6 to 7 kilometers in a day, and I'm much better after that. I walk in the nature. I love watching animals and birds around. Now, I have to tell you one thing here. He is not living in some sort of, a beautiful natural place. He is living in the heart of Mumbai. And I was like, okay, so where's nature? Does that make sense? Like, I think and fantasize a lot, and I want to capture the minutest sound in nature. So obviously he was living close to the national park in Mumbai, so he could walk around, but it was like, he described it as if he was in the middle of a bush. I love music where you go deep inside. I love kirtans and bhajans. These are like devotional songs and ghazals. Again, deep songs which express this emotions like love and grief. And he says, I converse with people around me. I love socializing. I share the experiences. Even when I'm praying, I imagine God's like a friend and I discuss with him. I don't realize how time flies. I think a lot. I have lots and lots of ideas which crowd my mind and I cannot concentrate. I'm very, very creative and imaginative. And all these creative, imaginative ideas actually come and express quite well through his dreams. So he talks about these beautiful dreams of sitting in cool, quiet nature. He feels really happy and light, and his mind is engrossed in it. And he once dreamed of, he gives one example and says, I'm sleeping on lush green lawn, and there's a fluffy white rabbit and near my feet. So it was like, this was some sort of an Alice in Wonderland. It was like, he had these really fantastic ideas and dreams, and then and somewhere it was coming from a place which was where you could take those important parts as a part of your rubric picture as well. So say for example, if you want to include this part, we could look at, there is some sort of religiousness because he prays quite every day. He loves these music. He has these dreams of animals, of nature, of beautiful things around him. So you could include all these as a part of your picture, and you could use it as your rubrics. However, we are looking at something where is this being expressed from? All right, and then we come to a level where there is this person who is this extremely cheerful, happy, lively person who derives great joy and creates these sort of fantasies in his life. And it's like he has these beautiful, pleasing ideas. He's very creative, he's very imaginative, and all of these are being reflected in his dreams because his dreams are absolutely beautiful and pleasant and, light and happy. And these are important parts of his deeper state because this is where I would really use them as my rubrics. And these would be the more deeper level rubrics which are more closer to the person, rather than using those rubrics where you have aggravated, walk better by walking and better by talking, because the walking and the talking and the conversing is coming from a much deeper place, which is about this happiness, this being with people and deriving joy out of that situation. So that for me is an important rubric rather than taking the rubrics which are just a superficial part of the picture. So now we have this person and we have these really horrible, painful headaches which he has. And then and his life around is really so happy and beautiful. And there seems to be nothing which can actually stress him at this point. So where are these headaches actually coming from? This is a very important thing. This is where the polarity of the case for me makes a very big difference. So let's look and ask him some more questions. And the question I ask is, I was just trying to find out what excites these headaches. What happens? What are the stresses which actually create these headaches? So I asked him, how do these headaches start? Or when was the first time you have had this headache? And he remembers an incident when his daughter died at birth due to cord strangulation. And he says it was the most upsetting part for him ever. And he remembers the first migraine. Now, when the headaches actually became these really intense ones, they started a few hours after that incident, and he has had them ever since. And then it doesn't matter what happens, they do come. And now it's important now, do we consider this? Because exciting factors and ailments from are an important part of a homeopathic case. Now, do I consider these ailments from grief or death of loved ones? Now again, there comes another question to confirm what sort of understanding this person has for this incident. So the question I would ask is, what was it for you? What was that experience for you? And he said, I could not get away from those thoughts. I could experience the suffering of my wife and daughter. I can even experience the suffering of others and often imagine what is the limit to one can suffer. I have to take my mind off these things and keep myself busy with something else. And my first headache started when I was 10 to 15 years back, when he said he saw animals being killed at a butcher. And he says, I've left meat since then. And that for me was important again. So it was not about grief. It was not about death of loved ones. It was the sensitivity to suffering and the ability to take his mind away from this, doing something else, was an important rubric here. So I hope it's making sense. It's all about understanding where these things are coming from and using those deeper set of rubrics rather than taking the rubric which comes to you in the first instant and using all of them and putting them all together in your repertory programs. So for me, these PQRS things were, his headaches were aggravated on thinking of the suffering of others and feeling their pains and experiencing their screams, and he was much better by diverting his thoughts. And this extreme sensitivity to pain and suffering and better by diverting thoughts was for me an important part of the rubric picture. And this was what I would use in the rubric. And now suddenly everything makes sense because he's creating this beautiful world around him, which was in a way a diversion from the painful reality of the suffering which he's had, all those intense things he's seen or experienced according to him in his life. And this was in my first year of practice, and at that point in time I didn't have the depth to understand the bigger picture of where all this was coming from. Today I do realize this is a part of a certain group of remedies, and things would have happened I would have realized what it was much before and would not have even gone to a repertory. But then I repertorized this case and I was using these rubrics, which were the deeper ones, because I used two different types of repertorizations. I repertorized the basic, the ones I spoke about, better by sleep, better by walking, better by talking, and I got confused because there were so many remedies coming up and half of them were already given to him. And when I use these deeper rubrics, such as this cheerfulness, this pleasurable dreams, the mind, the suffering and the fear of suffering in the mind, and need to divert his mind, the very strong remedy which came up was pipermate, and I have to say opium came up as well, and then the other ones like natrum carb and so on. So this is just one part of the repertorial totality, and this was confirmed in a number of ways. And I'll tell you, when I was reading Piper Metasticum, and this wasn't the first time I was using this remedy, I had seen this being prescribed with one of my teachers. But since this case, I've used this remedy a number of times. This is like one of the many types of Piper Metasticum cases I've seen. But let me tell you what was that which struck me then. When you read the Mitra Medica, you see the mental symptoms or excitement or depression are the main part of the story, but the headaches were much better by diverting the mind. So the excitement and the depression were two parts of the process, and the headaches or any sort of pain better by diversion of your mind was the keynote of Piper Metasticum, and I thought that was very interesting for me. And the other thing which you come up in that whole proving, because it's made from kava, which is an intoxicant, and it comes from the black pepper family, as I've mentioned before. And the whole proving, this is from Ellen's encyclopedia, and it says it's all about this intense excitement and cheerfulness. So have for a long time not gone through my daily work with such cheerfulness and ease. This unusual life, vigor and exhilaration. I felt satisfied and hilarious. It's like I'm lively, I'm wakeful, I'm in better spirits. I feel I can dance, I can talk. So it's not about the talking and the company, it's the joy and the intense pleasure you derive out of these activities, which is the core and which has to come in the rubrics rather than those expressions of that inner state. So he got pipermethysticum 200, and I was quietly confident of the remedy because I had seen this remedy being prescribed before with my teachers. If I had not, it would have been hard. And this was the follow-up. So I used to give single doses, then I used 200, exclusively 200 potencies in almost all of my cases, unless it was a really pathological case. And he aggravated when he took that first dose. He went into that real anxiety state which he experienced when his daughter died. So I think at that point in time, he never actually really felt the depth of it. He actually diverted himself and escaped with that intensity. So that was what he was experiencing. And then he never had those severe migraines after that. He did have headaches, but they were much, much less intense. So we didn't actually repeat the remedy when he had those headaches. He repeated it only if he had intense ones, which could turn into possible migraines. So from my records, he got 4 doses in that 1 year. So that was the follow-up, and that was how this remedy is quite an important part of my understanding, my Mathemedica knowledge. This was never taught to us in college as one of the polycrest or one of the main remedies out of those 300 remedies. I don't remember pipermethysticum, but this is like such an important part of my Mathemedica from the clinical world, and still use it along with the black paper, the Piper Nigrum as well. So hope this helps you understand the differences between the rubrics you're choosing for your case. It's important for you to realize what's the rubrics at stage 2 and what are the rubrics at stage 3. Doesn't mean stage 2 rubrics are not right, just means that you end up with so many different remedies which are much more confusing to choose from. If you end up with more stage 3 rubrics, things become much more easier and clearer, and possibly the way of finding your remedy is much clearer. So hope that helps in your next case, and let me know what you think about this, and what are your ways of converting symptoms into rubrics, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye bye.